Throne of Eldraine spoiler card season has officially begun, and it is starting off with a bang. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. Today, we are here to talk about Throne of Eldraine. The juicy spoilers have started. Now, we only have a little dribble to start with. We only have one card, two variations, but only one card to discuss today, at least so far. Who knows what else is going to come along later today. Either way, this is enough for me to be hyped and start a video, because some of you may remember a little while back, I did another spoiler video specifically talking about story spoilers for Oko, the Fey Planeswalker. Well, that's who we're going to be taking a look at. During my live stream today, Paul popped in and was like, oh, there's a Throne of Eldraine spoiler. So he immediately tweeted that over to me. And I decided as soon as the stream was over, we were going to do a video talking about him. So without any further ado, let us take a look at the first variation of Oko, Thief of Crowns. 1 blue, 1 green, 1 colorless for a 4 loyalty legendary planeswalker. Obviously, all planeswalkers are legendary. His +2 ability is create a food token. His +1 ability, so he has 2 plus abilities, is target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3 and -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature an opponent controls with power 3 or less. So let's break down the whole thing. First of all, 3 mana for a 4 loyalty planeswalker that can go up to 6 loyalty on the first turn means that it's not going to be too hard to keep Oko on the board. Now, his first ability, +2 to create a food token, is a very interesting one. I enjoy it when Wizards of the Coast teases us a little, and that's what's going on here. Obviously, when it comes to food tokens, these are tokens that are going to be produced by multiple cards. Think about something along the lines of the treasure tokens from Ixalan or the clue tokens from the Innistrad block, right? So these are going to be produced by multiple different cards. Now, what is their effect? That's something that we don't know. What does a food token do? Well, presumably, it is going to be an artifact. I think it's fairly safe to assume that they will be artifact tokens. There's no other token type that it would really make sense as. It couldn't be something like a land token. Nope. Creature token. Obviously not. Enchantment token. Theoretical? If it's enchanted food, maybe enchantment, but it feels like most likely it would be an artifact. That is the most likely thing. When you look at all the different card types that it could be, permanent types, I should say, artifact seems most likely. Now, what might a food token do? Well, in fantasy, food generally tends to have a healing kind of effect or a growth kind of effect. That's usually the way that it goes. Now, technically, you could say that food does also have negative effects. I mean, depending on how you view things, like Alice in Wonderland, with the food that makes you big, the food that makes you small, that sort of thing, or the poisoned apple. But I feel like since you're the one creating the food tokens, in most cases, it's going to be a situation where this is going to be something beneficial, as opposed to the idea of force feeding your opponent creatures foods for negative effects just seems unwieldy and unlikely from a flavor perspective. So it seems to me like more likely the food token will be to give a creature either some kind of a boost or to untap the creature. Those are my 2 most likely guesses. Either some sort of boost, a beneficial effect, or untap the creature. Then that is sort of, the food has a rejuvenating effect, like the elvish food, like the lembas bread from Lord of the Rings, for example. Now, the next ability is target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. Now, this ability is a transmogrifying polymorph style ability, and that falls heavily into Blue's camp but also into Green's camp. Green does have cards that will transform creatures into other things. Permeating Mass is a good example of a card that will transmute creatures into different creatures. And then you have stuff like Metamorphosis as well. So Green does have some of these effects. So it fits into both green and blue. And if you want to look at it as the transformation is the blue part, the green part is the green elk that is 3/3. I really like the flavor behind this concept. Oko is just transforming either threats into elks or just for his own amusement. And it shows like Oko is a shapeshifter planeswalker. And it shows that his shapeshifting capabilities extend out past just himself into obviously other creatures as well. Now, this I think ties into his name, Thief of Crowns, as well. You may or may not know this, but Oku has a problem with nobility and father figures. So specifically, he would take issue with kings and other nobility and not trust them. I'm not going to go into too much of the story behind Oko in this video, simply because I did do another Oko video where I went into depth about his story, how he enslaved Garruk, and all of that. I actually have 2 different videos talking about Oko with different levels of detail. One is based originally off of excerpts from the Throne of Eldraine book, which, by the way, I'm getting tomorrow. So I've already pre-ordered it. I will have the Throne of Eldraine book, and I will devour that for interesting stories to share with you guys. So what I'll do is at the end of this video, I will link the 2 previous videos I made on Oko. So if you want to know about Oko's relationship to Garruk, you want to see some interesting other artwork that involves Oko, because there's one actually that shows him wielding green, blue, and black magic, which makes me think he might have originally been concepted as a green, blue, black planeswalker, but they just changed it to green, blue at the end. So if you want to see the artwork that I'm talking about, at the end of the video, you can go ahead and click on the link to check that out. But to return to talking about him now, he does have issues specifically with royalty. He has issues with father figures. They attempted, the people of his world attempted to magically bind his capabilities within him. And his Planeswalker spark actually ignited at that time, and he took his vengeance upon these people. So possibly he turned the royalty, these Fey rulers of another world, into 3/3s and maybe stole one of their kingdoms. That's entirely possible. The Thief of Crowns could also reference Rowan and Will Kenrith's missing father, who, if you didn't know it, Will and Rowan are both royalty. That again is something covered in those other videos that I mentioned. So he could have something to do with the disappearance of the High King, and that'll be part of the storyline thread that I'm interested to learn about. Now, the ability also ties in mechanically, I presume, to the first ability, because if you notice, it changes an artifact or a creature, takes all their abilities and turns them into a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. So food tokens most likely are artifacts that will be transformed into 3/3 creatures by this ability. And again, the final ability reinforces that to me as well. With the -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control and target creature an opponent controls with power 3 or less. So this is a new school version of like Gauntlets of Chaos power, where you're taking something from your opponent and giving them something in return. Now, this isn't a full-on fair exchange in terms of you can only get something from your opponent that has, like, first of all, you can only get a creature. And secondly, the creature has to have power 3 or less. So you're not able to take big, fat, meaty creatures, which frankly, I like, because I play a big, green, meaty boy deck, and I don't want my creatures being stolen by Oko. I don't want to be given a food token in return for my aggressive mammoth. Thank you very much, Oko. So this sort of stealing another creature ability and this exchanging control, it shows his mental domination, the mental domination that he exerted on Garruk. Now, it's interesting to note that in the story, he's able to take over Garruk, who's a planeswalker, but he's not able to do that on the card. Now, there may be a number of explanations for that. One may be they just felt that that was too powerful to give Oko for his cost. They maybe thought, okay, you know what, 1 activation of the +2 ability, and all of a sudden he can steal a Planeswalker, feels too mechanically powerful. So even though from a story perspective he should be able to steal Planeswalkers, we're not going to allow him to do that. This could also mean that they're going to represent Garruk in the set as a non-Planeswalker, that they somehow may represent him as a creature card because he's under the domination of Oko and won't operate as a normal Planeswalker. That is theoretically possible, but I believe it's improbable. Now, when we turn to the artwork, I have to say I absolutely love this artwork. It transmits the narcissistic, indolent nature of Oko very well. Here he is lounging back, laid back against a rock with his thorn crown tilted off to the side while he idly just stares at a old dagger. This might be his personal blade. It might be the weapon left over from someone he's transmogrified into an elk creature, or it could be a dagger that he is about to turn into an elk. I love the sylvan nature of the environment that he's in. You can see that he is in an old forest. You've got the moss growing up the tree beside him to show that this is a place that it's kind of like deeper, darker forest. And I love the little motes of light that are floating above his head. I really love that leaf, or the two leaves, I should say, that have fallen down upon him. You can see that he has been laying there for a while in idle contemplation with not a care in the world. He's a charismatic rogue, and that's transmitted very effectively with this artwork, where he's just laying back. He's leaning back on the rock. He's got one arm up behind his head. He's got one leg tucked up under him. He's not shown in a state of battle readiness. And the leaves that have fallen on him serve to show that he has been there for a while, just in his own contemplations. No rush. He's got all the time in the world. Now, I mentioned that we actually have two Okos to look at. Now, the second Oko we're going to look at is just a variant art of the same card. So the powers, the abilities, that's all the same, obviously, as you can see on the screen in front of you. It's just the artwork that is different. Now, this artwork is interesting because to me, it almost appears as if Oko is lounging as a king above the fairies in Eldraine, because you can see him lounging in, actually, I feel like I had a chair that looked similar to this. Obviously, this is grown out of some kind of canopy, possibly a big gigantic leaf stretched out over like a vine kind of bower setup. And you can see that there are thorns sprouting up all along the outer edge of it. And if you haven't seen my previous videos, you may not have noted that Oko has a very thorny theme to him. You can see it in his crown of thorns, which is always shown tilted to the side and not perfectly resting on his head, in a way to show his disdain for royalty. His fingertips all have these little metal sharp points that are very reminiscent of thorns. The outer ring has the thorns. The over shoulder pauldrons that he have also have thorns that have been stained red at the top. Now, we don't know if this is from blood or just is like a dyeing procedure that Oko uses to get that coloration for effect. But you can see he's a very visually oriented individual. His pants are in excellent repair. His clothing is all in good repair. It's not ripped up in any way. He cares about the way that he looks. And you can see from the angle, he's got his finger lifted in an imperious manner, where he basically looks like he is listening to, if you follow his eye line, it looks like he's staring down at the fairy that is hovering in the lower left corner. And he's just kind of like leaning back in this sort of, again, I have no concerns, idyllic fashion, while he has his finger lifted in that way that indicates royalty, pinkies out when you're drinking the tea and such. It gives that sort of a feel to it. And it's like he's being told news that he doesn't really fully believe. Like he's just kind of half disdainfully disregarding what is being told to him by the fairy. So it seems to me like Oko may actually be lording over a certain subset of fairies on the Eldraine world. he may have used his magic. Obviously, his -5 ability is something that's going to allow him to take control of these fairies. So perhaps he generated magical food and then used the magic energy from that to take over the fairies and mentally dominate them with his magic, right? So that is a situation where I could see him dominating over them. He doesn't believe in traditional structures or order. Again, I invite you to go ahead and check out my other videos on the subject where I go deeper into the flavor and lore behind Oko, including an interview with the people who created him, going more in depth with different details about him. But either way, I like both of these artworks. I do have to admit, I like the previous artwork more with the leaves and just the whole idyllic nature. Oko seems more smug in this artwork that we're looking at, and he comes across as less likable, more devious, and a little more evil. I really do feel like originally he was concepted as a planeswalker that also wields black mana, because there is artwork depicting him actually throwing out thorn magic that is green, blue, and black, and it is very prominent. So again, that is located in my previous Oko videos. If you want to get deep down with the lore, I'll link them here at the end of the video for you. So I want to give a big shout out to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you very much. An extra shout out to Skyfire. She is the one who treated me to the Throne of Eldraine book that will be in my possession tomorrow. I'm very much looking forward to the story because, in all honesty, Wizards of the Coast has stepped up their game, and from the excerpt that I've read from this book, it is actually going to be considerably better than the War of the Spark novel. So here's hoping that it doesn't actually turn out to be terrible. What I've read so far, 2 sample chapters, actually impressed me and made me want to know more. I am very interested to know more about the Oko and Garruk dynamic, as they are both individuals who don't trust anyone. So will they become friends? Will they become enemies? Will Garruk be redeemed? Will Garruk become an enemy for the Gatewatch? What is going to occur? I am genuinely curious. So that is all I have to say for now, my friends, aside from remember,
together we are the 6th color of magic.